All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming to the Cadet Wings presentation. Before we get started, just wanted to go over a couple housekeeping items. Please continue to check back on the website for additional information on today's presenters and presentations. Just as a reminder, all the presentation times are in the Central Time Zone. For those of you who are looking for conference credit within the new education and training program, please complete the education and training credit request form at the end of the day. Only one survey is needed for the entire day, not on a per session basis. There will be another 4 attendees who are selected today to receive a door prize on Amazon gift card. So please make sure that you're registered if you're not. Those winners will be announced at the hangar time at 3:50 p.m. Central this afternoon. And if you want to check out who won yesterday, please look on the Wing website for that. And then also at the conclusion of the conference today, there will be a feedback survey that we would love for you to fill out so we have information on these events better in the future. And without further ado, let's jump into today's presentation.
Hey everybody, my name is Roe Norber. I'm a cadet major in the Civil Air Patrol, and I want to start off by thanking everybody for viewing my presentation on the Cadet Wings program, which is an Air Force sponsored program where you can get your private pilot certificate on a complete United States Air Force scholarship. So thank you again for coming. I apologize that I wasn't able to deliver this presentation live or synchronously, even though it's virtual. But with the dates of the conference, I wasn't able to make it. So I have this pre-recorded presentation here for anyone who's interested in this topic, and I included my contact information towards the end of the presentation. So if at any point you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything that you want to discuss concerning the Cadet Wings program or your private pilot training, or any questions for me whatsoever, you can feel free to send me an email, and I'll talk more about it towards the end. But I actually encourage you all, if you're interested in the Cadet Wings program, even if you don't have any questions yet, to just send me an email and get in touch with me so I can kind of help you throughout the process. So again, my name is Roe Norber. I'm a cadet major, and we'll go ahead and get started with this presentation. Thank you so much for joining. So I'm sure that I probably know many of you, but for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. Like I mentioned, I'm a cadet major. I've been in the Civil Air Patrol for about 5 years. I joined the Pewaukee Composite Squadron to start off my cadet career over in Wheeling, Illinois. And I was there for about 1.5 years, after which I was the first cadet commander of the Colonel Charles Compton Composite Squadron in Evanston, Illinois. They started up that squadron in March of 2017, and they sent me over to help start the cadet program of that unit. I served in that leadership position for about 1.5 years as well. And since then, I've served as the vice chair and later peer advisor of the Illinois Wing Cadet Advisory Council. In 2019, I served as the cadet commander of the Illinois Wing Spring Encampment over at Naval Station Great Lakes, and that's where those 2 pictures are from. The one on the left is me and some squadron mates following the graduation, and the one on the right is when Colonel Dempsey came to visit the encampment, and giving him a briefing just of what's going on there. Colonel Dempsey, of course, being our Illinois Wing commander. So, and then most recently, and notably in my cadet career, is in February of 2020, I was the first Illinois Wing cadet to earn my private pilot's license through the Cadet Wings program. And I did my flight training through the Civil Air Patrol, and that's the purpose of this presentation, is to inform you about how you can do the same thing. So what is Cadet Wings? So Cadet Wings, you'll hear me refer to it as a program more than a scholarship. And I choose my words deliberately when I say that. Because this is not a type of situation where it's, you get X amount of money to put towards your flight training, and it's like, okay, cool, do with it, go find an instructor, pay an instructor, rent an airplane, and you have this much money to get your license. That's not really what this program is. this is really a program where beyond the financial support that you're going to get from Cadet Wings, you're going to get a lot more support from national headquarters beyond that. And so you can expect weekly or bi-weekly check-ins from national headquarters, and they'll be checking in on your progress and seeing how you're doing. And really what they're trying to do is they're trying to find any impediments to your flight training, anything that's getting in your way, and they're going to help remove those barriers. And so if aircraft scheduling is a problem, if they need to move things around to make sure that you have an instructor and you have an airplane, whatever needs to happen to get you in the air, they'll do whatever's in their power to make it happen. So that way, the only thing you have to worry about during your flight training is focusing on your flight training. And that alleviates a lot of burdens associated with flight training, because unlike many other student pilots across the country, you're never going to be in a situation where you're like, wow, I'd love to take a flight lesson, but let me see if I can work enough hours this week or get enough money to, get up in the air for a couple hours on Saturday or anything like that. That's never going to be a concern of yours if you're in the Cadet Wings program. And further than that, you're going to be doing your private pilot's license with the full support of the U.S. Air Force and of national headquarters. And so beyond just the financial assistance that they'll give you, they really provide an incredible service in helping you get your pilot's license with the full support of that they can offer. Now, the reason for the Cadet Wings program is because of, I'm sure everyone here has heard of the pilot shortage that's been ravaging the aviation industry in the U.S. and really around the world. And it's easy, with the pandemic going on now to kind of overlook that, because it's the opposite. They've been furloughing pilots, left and right. But experts are predicting that this pilot shortage that we were facing as a country is going to return in full swing, if not greater, following the end of this pandemic, the end of coronavirus. And so the reason for the Cadet Wings program is the Air Force and National Headquarters wanted to work together to recognize American youth who would make pilots not only good pilots, but pilots who will contribute back to their communities. And they wanted to just populate America's youth. They wanted to introduce more pilots into America's youth population. And so they want to just, the point is not necessarily to recruit for the Air Force. And that's kind of a common misconception that you hear a lot is, wow, the Air Force is paying for your private pilot's license. You have to sign on the dotted line and join. But that's not the case at all, because the Air Force is really the organization that's going through and organizing this, but really it's to work to solve the pilot shortage. And so that is not only affecting the Air Force, it's affecting the airline industry, it's affecting flight schools. And so this is not there's really no obligation attached to this. But I do tell people that if you do aspire to be a military pilot, Cadet Wings can only help, because if you're joining the military, and they already invested a certain amount of money in you to get you your private pilot's license, they're going to want to see a return on that investment. So they're probably more likely to send you through to flight school. And also you'll have experience working within their flight training curriculum, so that can only help as well. But there is absolutely no obligation to join the Air Force following your flight training with Cadet Wings. If you want to, that's great. If you want to do something else with your private pilot's license, that's also great. There's no commitment whatsoever. You can see in every slide, I'll let you know what the pictures are of. That's February 2020, and the day that I got my private pilot's license, which is by far easily one of the proudest days and happiest days of my life. And there on the left is me shaking hands with my designated pilot examiner, Alan, who also by coincidence was the pilot examiner who gave my dad his instrument rating. And that was following my check ride. And then on the right is me shaking hands with Major David Gillingham, who is my squadron commander and also my primary flight instructor throughout my flight training. And that was a picture taken right after when I got my pilot's license. So by far, like easily one of the most proud and happiest days of my life right there. So why should you do your flight training through Cadet Wings? Like what is the difference? So I already kind of touched on it in the sense of what national headquarters and the U.S. Air Force are going to be able to offer you. I can't tell you how many times have had planes moved around and things reorganized to make sure that that if I was able to fly, I had the aircraft available. And so of course there's all that support, and also the level of training that you'll receive if you do your flight training through the Civil Air Patrol is really just unparalleled. There's nothing else like it. You're going to learn not only to the standards, to the ACS standards of getting your private pilot's license, But truly, the Civil Air Patrol is going to show you how to be a safe and professional pilot, and they do that through the outstanding level of instruction you're going to get, and they also do it through the standard operating procedures of the Civil Air Patrol, which factor in a bigger safety margin than what you're able to do just as a private pilot. And so there's a lot that flying through Civil Air Patrol can do to help you in the long run and to make you a better, more safety conscious, more professional pilot. And it's interesting, I didn't fully appreciate the level of precision and excellence that Civil Air Patrol flight instructors push for and teach you until after I got my pilot's license and I started flying with instructors doing various checkout flights at different flight schools for rentals, and noticing that wasn't the standard. To me, I had just been surrounded by such a level of professionalism and excellence in the cockpit that I just assumed that was normal, that was a standard for flight instructors. But then when I went and flew with instructors at a private flight school, I kind of got a sense that I realized that wasn't the case, and it really made me fully appreciate what I was getting from my Civil Air Patrol flight instructors. And the other thing is, since the Civil Air Patrol flight instructors are all volunteers, they're doing it for one reason only, and that's to help you. If you go through a private flight school, you might have a fantastic instructor, but chances are you also might have someone who's just trying to pay the bills, and more likely just trying to fill up their logbooks as they aspire to get a job with the airlines. And in Civil Air Patrol, you're going to get flight instructors that are dedicated primarily to your flight training. That is their goal when they fly with you. And so you can take Cadet Wings and go through a private flight school, but if you really want the full benefit of the Cadet Wings program, if you really want to get everything you can out of it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you do your flight training through the Civil Air Patrol as I did. It might make things a little more complicated logistically because the Civil Air Patrol aircraft and personnel are not only used for flight training. If you were to go to a flight school, that is what they do. That is 100% what they do, and their airplanes are dedicated to that. So maybe logistically things would be a little bit easier, but I think that the slight logistical challenge is highly worth it once you get your pilot's license, and you'll find yourself a much better pilot than your colleagues and counterparts who may have not done their flight training through Civil Air Patrol. Not to say that private flight schools are bad, and not to say that people who got their private pilot license through other means are any worse off or inferior as pilots, but that's just my experience here. So a lot that can be offered through doing your flight training through Civil Air Patrol, to say the least. And so the picture on the left there is a night flight that I did with one of my flight instructors, Major Rod Rakic of the Chicago Senior Squadron. And he took that picture as I was getting in some of my night requirements. We were at DeKalb just knocking out the night landings that I needed for my check ride. The picture on the right is a GoPro picture also taken by Major Rod Rakic of us doing some practice landings also at DeKalb as well. And then the center picture there is a picture that Major Gillingham took after my first solo cross country, which was one of the proudest days of my life as well. It's my first time leaving the airport by myself. And I flew from DuPage Airport in Chicago up to Madison, Wisconsin, then back to DuPage, stopping at Janesville, Wisconsin on the way. And that was an exhilarating experience. I definitely was nervous going into it. I remember doing my run up and taking off, thinking about how I absolutely had no business doing this. And I couldn't believe that I was piloting an aircraft from Chicago to Wisconsin and back. But coming back was one of the best, most rewarding feelings I'd ever encountered. So that was a really awesome day. So why can Cadet Wings help you after you get your private pilot certificate? Because it's not they don't just leave you off after you get your private pilot's license. So after you get your private pilot's license, you'll have a new mission opened that's called a Proficiency Mission. And the Cadet Wings program is going to offer you 1.8 hours a month of funded flying after you get your private pilot's license. And you can use that to maintain your proficiency, to keep practicing, and also to get checked out in different aircraft with different avionics systems. So I did my private pilot training in a Cessna 172, which is a fairly standard airplane to do your flight training in. But upon receiving my license, I spent actually this past summer getting my Form 5 rating for the 182 G1000. And so the picture on the right there is me flying a steam gauge 182 G1000. And I have a mask on there because that was this past summer after COVID had already settled in. And the picture on the left there is me flying the 182 G1000. After I got my Form 5, I actually flew it to Madison and back. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a sophomore student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is why I'm very partial to flying to Madison. But I actually flew it to Madison, Wisconsin and back just to celebrate having passed my Form 5. So, you know, a lot of people after they get their private pilot's license, it's a struggle to keep flying because flying it's not a cheap hobby, and the skills that you learn as a pilot, it's not like riding a bicycle. If you take a significant amount of time off flying, you'll notice your skills start to degrade, and that can be both bad in terms of maintaining your skills, but also it could be dangerous. And so Cadet Wings is going to be continuing to fund your flying after you get your private pilot certificate with that 1.8 hours a month. And so that's if you do that and then maybe self-fund a little more flying, you can continue to improve your skills as a pilot after having received your private pilot license. And there's a saying in the aviation community that your pilot's license is a license to learn. You know, you never stop learning. You can never know everything about aviation. And you hear that from me, you know, someone who's been a pilot for about coming up on a year now, and you'll hear that from airline pilots and military pilots who have been doing this for the vast majority of their lives. They're still learning something every time they get in the cockpit. And so Cadet Wings will continue to fund your education and your flying past receiving your license. Okay, so now we'll get a little bit into the requirements for the application, and I didn't apply through the conventional means into getting into Cadet Wings. So I was in the first group of cadets to be offered the Cadet Wing scholarship, and it was when the scholarship was first started. And so I'm not as knowledgeable about the application requirements or the application process, I should say, as I am about being in the program. But just through my exposure to Cadet Wings and through helping other people, you know, with their Cadet Wings applications and figuring it out, I've gotten a good sense of the application requirements. So the first requirement is an age requirement. Now, I'll just go ahead and preface this before I even get into it by saying, if you're not within the age requirement, the age range to get your scholarship, don't let that don't let that discourage you. There's still a lot you can do to start working towards your Cadet Wings scholarship application, and there's really a lot that goes into it. So if you're too young to apply now, there's still a lot you can do to start working towards strengthening your application and making it more competitive. And I'll get into some of that later on in this presentation. But in order to get your scholarship, you need to be within 6 months of the minimum age to get your private pilot's license by the time you get your applications, but by the time you get your scholarship. So scholarships are awarded in March, and you need to be 17 years old to get your private pilot's license. So that means that in order to get a scholarship, you need to be 16 years old and 6 months in March of the year you want to get your scholarship. Scholarship applications are open between October and December, and so then by that March, you need to be within 6 months of turning 17. So we'll get into more details about what you can do if you're not necessarily in that age range later in the presentation, but that's the minimum you need to be awarded a Cadet Wing scholarship. You also need to have completed, or you don't necessarily need to have completed your first solo flight, but this is, they put it as not a requirement, but it's very highly encouraged. And the same goes for your FAA knowledge exam, which is also commonly referred to as the written exam. So the reason that they maybe not necessarily require, but highly encourage these two things as you put in your Cadet Wings application is because not only are they metrics in your flight training, but they're really proof that you're committed and dedicated to your flight training. Your first solo is really a momentous occasion, and it's really what separates people who just happen to have the money to go down to a flight school and pay for some lessons versus people who are really genuinely in it to learn and are taking their flight training seriously. A solo is you can't don't overlook the magnitude and importance of what a solo flight entails. It means you are the pilot in command of an aircraft. And that's really a fantastic occasion. And if you ask any pilot, no matter how much experience they have, I guarantee you all of them are going to fondly remember their first solo in very vivid detail. And, I remember my first solo, And it's really an exhilarating feeling that that's like none other. The first time you take off an airplane by yourself, knowing that you're going to be the only one to land that airplane. So anyways, the solo is an incredible event, but also highly encouraged for your Cadet Wings application. And then there's also the FAA knowledge exam, which is a written, which also is a requirement for your private pilot's license. In order to be eligible to take your private pilot check ride, you have to have completed the FAA knowledge exam within the past 24 calendar months. And this is more of a written theoretical exam and more of an academic exam for your private pilot's license. But neither of these two requirements / very encouraged parts of your application are arbitrary. Both of them are proof of your commitment to your flight training and also important metrics as you proceed through your flight training. So it's not like you're wasting your time working on any of these, because then once you eventually do get your Cadet Wings scholarship, you'll have these taken care of as you proceed towards your private pilot's license. Now the solo, you have a couple options for how you can get your first solo in. I did my first solo at the Johnson Flight Academy, which is a fantastic flight academy in Mattoon, Illinois. And that picture on the left is me at the graduation. And that was the summer of 2018 is when I did my first solo flight over there. And so there's the Johnson Flight Academy is fantastic. It's the one I went to, but there's tons of flight academies all over the country that are offered by the Civil Air Patrol. And you can go to those, and solo is absolutely not guaranteed, nor is it the point of the flight academy. The point is to provide primary flight training for about the first 10 hours of your flight training. But a lot of cadets are able to end up soloing, or at least pre-soloing by the end of their time at the Johnson Flight Academy. So really unique opportunity to go through a week of an intensive flight training course with very dedicated professional flight instructors and just surrounded by an environment of flight training and flight education. You really can't escape it when you're at the Johnson Flight Academy, and it's really a unique experience. You can also try to find a Civil Air Patrol flight instructor and self-fund and pay your way through your flight, the initial parts of your flight training in a Civil Air Patrol airplane until you get to your first solo. Or you can even go to a private flight school and get your first solo in there. And then when you get your Cadet Wing scholarship, you can choose to continue flying with that flight school if you decide you like them, or if you want to decide to fly through the Civil Air Patrol, you can apply your money that way. And so, I know I'll just kind of pause in the middle of this and say that I know that it's a lot to navigate, getting through these initial requirements and starting your flight training. And I say that as someone who was surrounded by aviation. My dad has been a pilot since I was born. I've known my uncle is a corporate pilot and a flight instructor. My squadron commander, Major Gillingham, who I've known for years at this point, is an active flight instructor. And still, as I was trying to navigate this process and get started on working towards my private pilot's license, it really felt like a maze that was almost impossible to get through, and it felt very confusing. So I can only imagine what it could feel like to someone who, general aviation is not 90% of their dinner table conversations. I can only imagine what it's like for someone who wasn't raised exposed to this, since I just had so much, had to navigate so much. So I know that as much as I'm just kind of reciting, the facts here of how you can get to this and how you can get to that, I know it can be very confusing. And that's why I encourage you to email me with any questions. I'd be more than happy to arrange phone calls or Zoom calls or anything like that. I really do want to help as many people as possible get started on their flight training. So if everything I just said about the solo and the FAA knowledge exam just kind of, it's like a dog watching TV for you, that's totally understandable. I was the same way. And you can email me with your specific questions or even just broad questions, and we can go into it in more detail. So I just kind of want to pause and acknowledge that. And so then the last requirement that I put on here is a little bit less of an objective thing, and that's being an active cadet. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, the point of the Cadet Wings program is not necessarily to recruit for the Air Force, but they want to introduce, they want to find cadets that have a lot of promise, and they want to find cadets who are going to use their private pilot's license for the greater good. What they want to avoid is giving someone their pilot's license just for them to run away with it, right? And so They want someone who's gonna become a pilot and then maybe become a flight instructor and help give flight instruction to the next generation of Civil Air Patrol cadets. Maybe become an O-flight pilot and or a Young Eagles pilot, and take young cadets or young Eagles who have never gone flying before and take them up for their first general aviation or maybe even their first aviation experience. They want people who are going to go back and try to help others achieve what they've achieved and use their pilot's license for the greater good, because there is a lot of good you can do with your pilot's license. And so how can you prove to national headquarters in the course of your application that you're not going to get your private pilot's license and run away, that you are going to stay active as a cadet once you earn your license and now use your license as a tool to help others? Well, the best way to do that is to be an active cadet now. So if you're constantly, I know I do completely understand that it's much more difficult to be an active cadet now, given the circumstances of coronavirus and everything being virtual. But if you're showing up to your weekly meetings regularly, if you're promoting regularly, maybe it doesn't have to be every 2 months. I know people get busy, but promoting every 3 or 4 months, attending events, whether those be virtual or in person, helping others that have less experience than you, you'll be able to prove that, if you're doing all of that now, they're not going to have any doubt that you're going to continue to do that once you have earned your private pilot's license. And a lot of people are very discouraged from applying to Cadet Wings that I speak to because of they might hold a lower rank, and they might think that would stop them from or prevent them from getting a scholarship. But I always tell people that if you look at the list of Cadet Wings graduates, there's a host of cadet officers. There's also a lot of cadet NCOs who have gotten Cadet Wings. And so, I'm sure that the people reviewing your applications at national headquarters would much rather see, maybe a master sergeant who is consistently promoting, consistently making their way through the cadet program, consistently helping others, than maybe a cadet captain who's been a cadet captain for 1.5 years now and hasn't really been doing anything above and beyond and has just been making their way through the ranks. If you think about who's more likely to contribute back to the cadet program and to the greater good after earning their private pilot's license, I'd say the cadet master sergeant's probably a little more likely, even though their rank is lower. So if you're a cadet airman basic, don't let that stop you from thinking about this and from achieving it. It's definitely more obtainable than you think. And as long as you're promoting regularly, rank doesn't matter. They is not of huge importance. They'd rather see people that are promoting regularly and actively involved than maybe people of higher rank that have been a little bit more terminal and maybe have not been, going above and beyond and helping others in the program. And so also, I'll just go ahead and I already spoke about the picture on the left, and the picture on the right is I think it was my second solo cross country, is I flew down to Peoria and Bloomington from Chicago, and I passed that really cool river on the way, and I snapped a really cool picture of it. So I have a lot of awesome pictures that I've just taken from the cockpit. If you go through my phone, you'll see it's probably about 90% aviation pictures. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the resources available. Like I said, I completely acknowledge that it's a lot to navigate and everything like that, but these resources can help you get started in your Cadet Wings training. So orientation flights are a very underutilized but phenomenal resource that the Civil Air Patrol offers. Until age 18, you're allowed 5 powered flights and 5 glider flights completely free, funded by the Air Force. And, these are, like I said, pretty underutilized, but it's a really fantastic opportunity if you haven't gone flying before. Maybe you've never been in a small airplane before. Maybe you have been in a small airplane before, but you want to kind of see what it's like to fly with the Civil Air Patrol, which is different in many respects. O-flights are a phenomenal way to do it. I've mentioned my dad's been a pilot for as long as I've been alive, and I have so much experience flying with him, but O-flights were still a different experience for me, regardless of all the time that I had, sitting next to my dad in the cockpit. So it's a phenomenal experience. And then glider flights specifically are something that are a little more rare, and a lot of pilots have never been in a glider before. It's an awesome experience. It's a ton of fun. If you look at the picture on the right, actually in 2019, I helped staff the Johnson Flight Academy, and I was working on the glider flight line. And at one point, I was able to take a flight in a glider when they were transporting it. And so that's where that picture is from. So awesome experience. I would totally recommend. I know that now because of COVID, things are more complicated, needless to say, but You know, if at any point you get an email offering orientation flights, I would highly recommend you jump on that. And if you have questions about orientation flights and you know, the logistics of them and when, you know, how they're going to work, whatever, you can go ahead and email your chain of command at your local squadron and let them know that you're interested in orientation flights. And I'm sure they'd be happy to help arrange them for you. Once you have done your first orientation flight, or a Young Eagles flight for that matter, you're going to have free access to the Sporty's Learn to Fly curriculum, which is about a $300 value online curriculum that goes over ground school lessons. It's essentially a virtual ground school up to your private pilot's license. And so we spoke a little bit about the FAA knowledge exam, the written. Sporty's Learn to Fly has an awesome database of questions to help you practice and study for the written. And so, you know, again, this can help you as you work towards Cadet Wings. And then even as you start your flight training and get into Cadet Wings, it's an awesome resource to have. You know, as I was doing my flight training, I was watching these Sporty's videos. You know, before my flight lessons, I would always know what we were going to cover, and I'd research it and I'd study. And I'd watch these Sporty's videos to get an idea of what we were going to learn. And then after the lessons, I would watch them again to just reinforce the concepts. And, you know, if it was a bad day, a bad weather day, or if there was a maintenance problem and we couldn't fly, you know, Sporty's is no substitute for flying, obviously, but it was always helpful to watch these live videos that they had of various flight lessons and everything like that as a substitute on the days that we couldn't fly. So awesome resource, really cool, and you get it for free after having taken your first orientation flight, or if you do a Young Eagles flight through the EAA, you can get that for free too. Flight academies, I already spoke about. Awesome way to be fully immersed in aviation for a week, whether you do gliders or powered flight or balloons. For the week that you're there, everything is going to revolve around your flight training. You cannot escape it. You're surrounded by your flight instructor. You're surrounded by your fellow cadets who are also learning how to fly. And it's a really fun way to just go down and just literally spend a week at the airport flying. And you're gonna learn so much because of just the full immersion you're gonna get into your flight training, and the value you're gonna get out of the time at the flight academy is like just substantially higher than the value you'd get if you were just going through your flight training normally. Like this intensive week-long program of full immersion, it just does wonders for introducing you into what flight training is like, and getting you started and well on your way. Also, aerospace lessons at your local squadron, another possibly underutilized resource. But if you have questions, if you're curious about any elements of aerospace or aviation, go ahead and email your chain of command at your local squadron and ask if you can do lessons or presentations or anything like that. I assure you that there's a wealth of knowledge and resources at each of your home squadrons about aviation and aerospace. And even if maybe your squadron doesn't have that many pilots, maybe another squadron does, everything's virtual these days anyways. So you can ask around, and maybe your chain of command knows someone who's a flight instructor who can come in and give a virtual presentation. But, utilize these aerospace lessons. And if there's something that you want to learn, go ahead and like I said, email your chain of command, make them, your chain of command is there to serve you. So make them use them as the resource they are, and tell them what you're interested in. And also, there's a ton of free online resources that I can direct you to. So the AOPA has a student pilot account, and for 6 months you can have a free subscription to Flight Training Magazine, which is a magazine with tons of articles written by experienced pilots and flight instructors all about flying, but within the context of your primary flight training. So, it's a really cool way to get different perspectives from a lot of different very experienced flight instructors and pilots. Embry-Riddle has an Aviation 101 program that you can go through online, and if you have any questions about that, you can email your chain of command. I'm sure people know about it, but it's a free online course, and they can actually offer you a free flight lesson following your completion of the course. So there's tons of resources online to help get you started too. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know it's a labyrinth. I know it's a lot to navigate. So if any of this or all of this leaves you confused, if I'm done reading this off and you're just kind of staring, not really having comprehended anything because it just sounds like a lot, please shoot me an email. We'll arrange a Zoom call, we'll arrange a phone call, and I'd be happy to walk you through any of this. So if I normally, when I deliver this presentation live, I offer up if anyone has any questions, but I'll save you guys to email me those. On the left, I'll just adjust the pictures. My second passenger ever was my brother, who you might recognize as Cadet Captain Jonathan Norber. And I flew him up in a Cessna 152. My first passenger was my dad. And so that was a really fun day. They were actually both on the same day. I flew my dad up. It's a small little two-seater, the 152. And this was in Madison, Wisconsin. I flew my dad up around and then came back, landed, and picked up my younger brother and flew him around. And so that was an awesome day. My first two passengers ever. And then the picture on the right was me flying with my dad and my mom. And that was the first time my mother had ever agreed to be a passenger of mine. Just for context, after I've got my driver's license, it took her forever to even be willing to drive with me. And I think I had soloed an airplane already before she was willing to get into the car when I was driving. So very, for whatever her reasons might be, she was very reluctant to get in the airplane with me. But I had plans to fly with my dad in this Piper Warrior that I was renting. And my logic to her is like, well, you're totally fine flying with dad if he's sitting up front in the left and I'm sitting to the right next to him, right? And she's like, yeah. So I said, well, what if you sat in back, but I sat on the left and dad sat on the right? Would that be okay? And I think the whole process was just so sudden that she didn't really have time to say no. So I got her in the plane with me, and that was a really awesome experience. So tons of fun stuff you can do once you get your private pilot's license. Lots of utility you can use it for, and lots of fun things you can do. So like I said, I'm going to leave you guys with my email. It is rnorber@illinoiswing.cap.gov. That's rnorber@illinoiswing.cap.gov. And I'm sure I can find a way to leave it here with the presentation. So if you have any questions, please send me an email. I can't stress it enough. Even if you don't have any questions, comments, concerns, but you just want to let me know that you're applying to Cadet Wings and you want to introduce yourself, that's awesome. Please let me know. And that way we have a channel of communication. So when you do have any questions, you're not introducing yourself for the first time. We already know each other, and I can jump right into helping you. I feel incredibly fortunate to have gotten this opportunity to earn my private pilot's license in such a unique and incredible way. And, I really want to help other people do the same. I really want to help provide this opportunity for as many people as possible. So please send me anything. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was a beneficial presentation, and I really do look forward to hearing from many of you. I also hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy any other presentations you're watching.